Hey there, angry faithful. I just wanted to drop in, bend your ear a little bit, get your attention. So if you're not listening, drop what you're doing and pay attention to me because I'm here to inform you that not only can you get your daily, maybe if you're binging it, I'm not sure, that's entirely up to you, but you can multiply your doses of angry me fuckery by paying attention to all of the platforms upon which you can find either the dulcet tones of my voice and David's voice or my pretty face and David's not so pretty face. Anyways, digressing, we not only on we are on YouTube, we are on Spotify, we're on Rumble, we're on Google, Apple Podcast. We have a TikTok page. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and of course Facebook. So if you find yourself fuckery deprived, curl up with a nice hot mug of shut the fuck up and just listen. Open those ear holes and be prepared to be cream pied like it's the first time. Thanks for listening.
Welcome, Angry Faithful. Today on Psychos and Sociopaths, we're going to talk about Richard Ramirez. Now, this was an all-around... He's an all-around just shit pump. He's an American serial killer, serial rapist, kidnapper, child molester, burglar, and he was into satanism and the cults. Let's just dive into this. Ooh. But his other names was the Valley Intruder, the Walk-In Killer, and most infamously, the Night Stalker, which we already talked about Night Stalker, and this is how we got to this guy right here. But he's not the original Night Stalker. We're just going to go with Valley Intruder and the Walk-In Killer because he's not, I don't think he's a Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez was born in El Paso, Texas on February 29th, 1960 to Juan and Mercedes Ramirez, the youngest of the 5 children. His father, Juan, Mexican national and former Chad Juarez policeman, who later became a laborer in Topeka and Santa Fe Railway, was an alcoholic, was prone to fits of anger that often result in physical abuse towards his wife and children. Richard began smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol at the age of 10. Wow, that's sad. As a 12-year-old, Richard, or Richie, as he was known to his family, was strongly influenced by his older cousin Miguel, a decorated Green Beret combat veteran who himself had already became a serial killer and rapist during his time in the U.S. Army. What? In the Vietnam War, Mike often bolstered of his brutal war crimes and shared Polaroid photos with Richard showing Vietnamese women who he had raped, murdered, dismembered, or taught his younger cousin some of his military skills, such as killing with stealth and efficiency, staying hidden in the dark, especially at night. Around this time, Richard began to seek escape from his father's violence and temper by sleeping in local cemeteries. Wow, man, I teach. I'm not gonna lie to you. I teach my kid how to defend herself for people that are attacking, but never to teach my kid how to be a serial killer. He literally would stop. From what I'm reading, he literally was taught how to be a serial killer, which, oh my God, that's some fucked up parenting. Well, it's not really parent. Well, it's still mentoring. We'll go with mentoring. That's the better word for this type of crap. Anyways, Richard was president May 4th, 1973, when Mike fatally shot his wife, Jessie, in the face with a handgun during a domestic argument. Like the graphic photos and stories, his cousin's war crimes in Vietnam. Ramirez would later similarly remark that witnessing the murder was not traumatic for him in a traditional sense, but rather a subject of fascination. After the shooting, Richard became sullen withdrawal from his family and peers. Sorry, I've got really bad gas right now. Mike was later found not guilty of Jesse's murder by raising sanity. With the shooting attribute and post-traumatic stress disorder from his service in Vietnam, he was confronted for several years at the Texas State Mental Hospital. Shortly after the shooting, Richard moved in with his older sister Ruth and her husband Roberto, an obsessive peeping Tom who took Richard along. Good Lord. God, this is literally step by step how do you make a serial killer. Who took Richard, and he was just being helped by his fucking family. Jesus. I'm sorry, folks. Was an obsessive peeping Tom who took Richard along his nocturnal exploits. After Mike was released from the mental hospital in 1977, he sometimes accompanied Richard and Roberto as a voyeuristic. Hold on, people. Stephen Hawking voice. Yeah, voyeuristic. Sorry about that. Frequently, he and Mike resumed bonding over their shared use of drugs and alcohol. It was during this period Richard began using LSD and had an interest in Satanism and the occult. With I hate to tell people this, but I've read the Satanic Bible and everything like that. It's a bore. It's I mean that's something I'm not interested in anything, but it's just the guy that one day I'll go over the guy that wrote it in a what the hell episode, but it's one of those things that it's almost comical, but it let's go back on to this. When he reached adolescence, Richard Ramirez began to melt his bigotry, big word, sorry, Stephen Hawking fellas. Bargaining sexual fantasies with graphic violence, including forcing bondage and BDSM, murder, mutilation, and rape. While still in school, he took a job at a local Holiday Inn and used his pass key to rob sleeping patrons. On the last one occasions, Ramirez molested 2 children in the elevator at the hotel, but he was never reported or prosecuted for the act. His employment ended abruptly after Ramirez attempted to rape a woman in her hotel room and was caught in the act by the victim's husband. Although the husband beat Ramirez at the scene, criminal charges were dropped when the couple, who lived outside of state, declined to return to Texas to testify against him. Oh my God. Should have beat him to death. Honestly, beat him to death. Ramirez dropped out of Jefferson High School. Well, he was a minor, I think, but I would have taken it. Ramirez dropped out of Jefferson High School in the 9th grade. In 1982, at the age of 22, he moved to settle permanently in California. It was around this time that Ramirez began use of cocaine, which quickly became his substance of choice, and began to commit theft and burglarize to procure money for said addiction. He lived nomadically between San Francisco and Los Angeles County. During this time, prior to his incarceration, he was known to frequently travel between north and south areas of California, both before, during, and his long crime spree. The murders. On April 10th, 1984, Ramirez murdered Mei Long, a 9-year-old Chinese American girl, in the basement of his apartment building in Tilton District, San Francisco. Leong was with her 8-year-old brother and reported looking for one of those $1 bills when Ramirez approached the girl and told her to follow him into the basement to find it. Sorry. Once they were in the basement, Ramirez beat, strangled, and raped Luan before stabbing her to death with a switchblade, hanging her partly nude body from a pipe with her blouse. The killings was not linked to Ramirez until 2009, when his DNA matched with the sample obtained at the crime scene. In 2016, officials disclosed evidence of a second subject identified through DNA sample retrieved from the scene, who is believed to have been present at the Lane murder. Authorities have not publicly identified the subject, describing being a juvenile at the time, and have not brought up charges due to lack of evidence. But these are the Night Stalker's crime. They ended up just making a list. June 28th, 1984. I literally had a uh talking Chinese moment, which anyways, June 28th, 1984, Ginny Bosco, March 17th, 1985, Maria Hernandez and Del Yoshi Okazaki. March 17th, 1985. Tizlan Yu, 1985. Vincent and Maria Zarara. Yeah, Zarara. Lillian Dow, Mabel Bell and Florence Lang, Carla Kyle and her 11-year-old son. Good Lord. Mary Cannon, Whitney Barnett. It's just a laundry list. But through these brutal murders, the identification of Ramirez, Erickson gave a detailed description of the assault to investigators. And police obtained a case of Ramirez footprints from Ramirez's house. The stolen Toyota was found abandoned on August 28th in Koreatown, Los Angeles. The police obtained a single fingerprint from rearview mirror. Ramirez carefully efforts to clean them his prints. The prints was positively identified belonging to Ramirez, who described as a 25-year-old drifter from Texas, with a long rap sheet that included many arrests for traffic and illegal drug violations. Identification of Ramirez's print was described as a near match. As a system used, the identification was recently installed. I guess this time frame they started using fingerprints to identify killers a little bit for legalization. Because even most of the time DNA evidence isn't even admissible in court, I don't think, anymore. Let's look that up real quick, because I hear and read things, and I think it's a lie detector that's not admissible in court. Yeah. Let's look at the on the wall. Get rid of this. Blood samples, yes. It can even be used for some crimes. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I thought that. I'm blanking on a lot of stuff, but I think it's like the lie detector that's not admissible in court. They still use it, even though it's not a viable use for court. I know there's like one thing that I just can't understand why lie detectors aren't admissible in court. It's I would have to do more research on it, but it's a strange thing. Mugshot, 1984 for arrest of auto theft. His capture. On August 30th, 1985, Ramirez took a bus to Tulsa. Tux? Another Stephen Hawking voice moment. Tucson. I had it right. Tucson, Arizona, to visit his brother, unaware that he had become a lead story in a virtual every major newspaper and television news program across California. After falling to meet his brother due to him not being home, Ramirez returned to Los Angeles earlier on the morning of August 31st. He walked past police officers who were staking out the bus terminal in the hopes of catching the killer should he attempt to flee on an outbound bus and into a convenience store in East Los Angeles. After noticing a group of elderly Hispanic women fearfully identifying him as El Mortor, the killer in Spanish. Now, Mator. My Spanish is a little off. El Matador. Wow, that's okay. Guess Ramirez saw his face on the front page of the newspaper La Opinion with the headlines calling Investigator Nocturno, the night invader, and flee the store in a panic. After running across San Angelo Freeway, he attempted to carjack an unlocked Ford Mustang, but was pulled out by an angry resident. Hold on, people. Sorry about that. Faustino Panin. Ramirez ran across the street in an attempt to take car keys from Angelo de la Torre. The woman's husband, Miguel de la Torre, witnessed the attempt and struck Ramirez over the head with a fence post in the pursuit. A group of over 10 residents formed a chase Ramirez down, Hobart Street, Boyd Heights. The group of citizens forced and quickly arrived at the 3,700 block of Hobart and found that Ramirez was severely beaten, unarmed, and took him into custody. The crowd grew to several hundred people and was becoming unruly toward Ramirez. And responding officer Andy Ramirez, no relation, thank God. It's one of the things. His last names carry on. It's like that whole his name is Mud type deal. Stayed behind while Officer Kim Kessler drove Ramirez to a Halton Beck police station. Basically, hold on. Basically, they mobbed him. Man, they didn't try hard enough, in my opinion, with all the stuff that they did. And then this is just my opinion. A lot of people will go out and say, "Oh, you can't be judge, jury, and executioner." I mean, he was doing something bad, and it's mob mentality, but sometimes it can be good. Sometimes, not all the time. Social media, not so much. This instance beat the monster, and yes, he was a monster. I don't care what you say. Uh, Trial and conviction. Jury selection for the trial began in July 22nd, 1988. At the first court appearance, Ramirez raised a hand with a pentagram drawn on it and yelled, "Hail Satan." On August 3rd, 1988, the Los Angeles Times reported that some jail employees overheard Ramirez planning to shoot the prosecutor with a gun, which Ramirez intended to smuggle into the courtroom. Coincidentally, a metal detector was installed outside and an intensive search was conducted on people entering. Wow, that's luck, I guess. On August 14th, the trial was interrupted because one of the jurors, Philip Seagren, did not arrive at the courtroom. Later that day, she was found shot to death in her apartment. The jury was terrified, wondering if Ramirez somehow directed this event from inside his prison cell, whether or not he could reach other jurors. However, it was ultimately determined that Ramirez was not responsible for Sergio's death. Just sad coincidence. As she was shot and killed by her boyfriend, who later committed suicide with the same weapon in a hotel. The alternative juror, who replaced Singlary, was too frightened to return to her home. On September 20th, 1989, Ramirez convicted of all charges, 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 of sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. During the penalty phase of the trial in November 7th, 1989, he was sentenced to death in California's gas chamber. He stated to he started to report he stated to reporters after the death sentence, "Big deal, death always with big deal. Death always went with territory, city and Disneyland." The trial cost $1.8 million. In today's date, it's $3.93 million in 2021 dollars, which at the time made it the most expensive trials in history, surpassed the O.J. Simpson case in 1994. Good Lord. He did try to appeal it on August 7th, 2006. Remember, first round of state appeals. And yes, every state has an appeal process. It takes about 15 years to kill a person, which it's kind of a tit for tat type deal to make sure that you're getting the right guy. Ramirez's first round of state appeals ended unsuccessfully when California Supreme Court upheld his conviction and death sentence. On September 7th, 2006, the California Supreme Court denied requests for a rehearing. Ramirez was additionally appeals pending until the time of his death. We'll get to that in a minute. Psychologist Michael H. Stone described Ramirez as a made psychopath as opposed to a born psychopath. He said that Ramirez schizophrenia personality disorder combined to the indifference to the suffering of his victims and his untreatability. Stone also stated that Ramirez was knocked unconscious and almost died on multiple occasions before he was 6 years old. As a result, later developed temporary epilepsy, aggressiveness, and hypersexuality. And yes, that actually is possible. I mean, I hate to use her as an example. There's 2 comedians that you can use that as an example. First one was Sam Kinison. Sam Kinison was a youth pastor for the longest time. Then he got in a car. I think he got hit by a car. The same thing happened with Roseanne Barr. They both got hit by vehicles, and they were like straight A students and everything. And once they got hit by a vehicle, or they had brain trauma, we'll just go with brain trauma. What had happened is their whole it's like a switch. They're not bad people, mind you, but it was one of those things that switched him from one personality to another. That's what I'm getting at. It is actually possible if you hit somebody hard enough, accidentally or on purpose or whatever the case, that you might switch their personality. Another note is a guy that when I was working corrections, he was a child molester. I had no sympathy for what happened to him, but he was legitimately beaten, uh, mentally handicapped now. I mean, they beat him so bad that he's now mentally handicapped. But Ramirez did die during his corrections. He wasn't gassed. He had secondary to B cell lymphoma at Marlin General Hospital in Greenbury, California, on June 7th, 2013. He was also being affected by chronic substance abuse and chronic hepatitis C viral infections. At 53 years old, he had been on death row for more than 23 years. Oh my God, that's too long. But some estimate he would have been in his early 70s before his execution was carried out due to California's lengthening appeal process. Texas is 15 years. Unless you like kill in front of a lot of people, then you're put up in an express line. That's for white people. I'm not stealing his stuff. But anyways, on that note, this is one of those people that most of the serial killers we go on, they're pretty much some of them are made, some of them are just born that way. Yes, it is possible. This is one of them that was made, and I feel bad for the circumstances. I'm not going to lie. Circumstances of 6-year-old being beaten like that, it's no call for it. You don't need that. No child should be beaten that bad or beaten bad. I mean, there's alternatives, but sometimes you need a good whooping. I'm not gonna lie. People are gonna hate me. You shouldn't strike your child. What if they're trying to, of course, if they're trying to poke a fork in a light socket, maybe you need to smack them just a little tad. Or, oh no, you can just pull them away, or you just let them do it. Just find out how you won't do that again. But anyways, we might be changing this venue a little bit, but not much. We're still going to go over killers and murderers and stuff like that. We might actually go over cold cases. Someone actually asked me to do that. One of the people that listened to me, not even know listened to me, it's like, hey, why don't you go over cold cases? I might look it through, go over with my co-host about it, see if that's something that he will be interested in. But it's one of those things that when I would have to have somebody else doing that with me, because I would love to have somebody, going back and forth how us as intelligent people would figure out these cold cases. I'm very, very love. I don't even know that's the right phrase way to put it, but I love detective stuff. I've always have for years, watching movies and reading books that you don't know what's going to happen until you finally get to that last chapter. It's always great. But we'll let everybody know, and hopefully next week give you a definitive answer. And if you do listen to the show, comment on our YouTube channel or comment on our Facebook page, or message me on if that's a venue that you would like to hear from us. Let us know. Always willing to go out and do a compromise, maybe once a month do a cold case, or once 3 months, whatever. But it's just one of those things that's much interesting. I was thinking about it beforehand, but I was like, how would I do it? But that's that, people. I'm David German. Thank you for watching Psychos and Sociopaths. Check y'all out later.